Thank you. Welcome to the November 20th meeting of the Oak Point City Council. Please silence your cell phones. The meeting is called to order at 6:02 p.m. We'll start by advising that we have a quorum. Every member of our city council is here and present, and we'll go to the invocation. Our gracious Father, in this season of Thanksgiving, we thank you for beautiful Oak Point. We thank you for our quality of life and our quality of place. We ask for your blessings and favor on all our residents and staff. Guide us to make the best decisions for our residents. In God, we still trust. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now to the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Paul. Agenda item number 4 is recognition and swearing in of a new officer.
Good evening. So this is one of my favorite things to do about this job is recognizing the officers and all their good work. I've said this plenty of times to the officers, and some of you heard it too. I'm thankful that we all work for this city, this council, this mayor, this city manager, because of your willingness to be open to the possibility of growing Oak Point to be its best. I think that it's helped work both for the police and fire. So I am unfortunate to be in this position. I can tell you that whenever we have our monthly and quarterly meetings for the Denton County Chief of Police, I really don't have that much to complain about. And so I'm thankful for that. Just hearing about what other chiefs are going through with their cities. Like I said, I'm just 100% thankful that I'm here. 100% thankful for the guys that actually work with us. If it weren't for them and their willingness to do better, be better officers, I don't think I'd probably be here, to be honest. So the reason why we're doing this tonight is because I received a letter from a Lieutenant Chris Webb. He's with the Office of the Attorney General's office. He's a state police officer. He sent me this letter because he actually came out to Oak Point and requested that we assist him, our officers, assist him with serving a warrant for a violent felony. So I'll start off with with 2 paragraphs that he wrote. Chief Tattoo, my name is Lieutenant Chris Webb, and I work for the Office of the Attorney General in our Criminal Investigation Division, assigned to the Fugitive Apprehension Unit. The OAG, Fugitive Apprehension Unit, was created in 2003 to locate and arrest violent fugitives, convicted child sex offenders who violate conditions of their parole, and to sex offenders who fail to comply with the state's mandated sex offender registration requirements. The OAG's Region 2 Fugitive Apprehension Unit is based in Arlington and is responsible for 115 northern Texas counties, which include DFW as well. I'm going to skip down to his experience here in Oak Point. He said, my experience this day with your department, from first contact to the arrest of this violent fugitive, was excellent. From communicating our needs to Sergeant Mosley and him understanding of our situation and their willingness to assist to the swift response of uniformed officers and their ability to carry out a hasty plan of action that led to the safe capture of this violent fugitive, all speaks volumes to the type of department Oak Point PD is. I believe it or not, I actually do get quite a few of these letters, but this is the only letter I've received from the state level. So it speaks volumes about what other agencies think about us and how we go about conducting our business. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get with Mayor Meek here. We're going to call the officers up one by one and present them with their accommodation certificates. Andrew Broner.
Congratulations. It's wonderful.
I'll take good care of it. Gregory Churchill.
So happy for you.
Sergeant Matthew Mosley.
Congratulations. Well deserved.
Last but not least, Sean Wiener. Detective Sean Wiener.
Congratulations.
Just want to take a picture. You guys want to scoot in?
Thank you.
One more thing on the police side, we're gonna actually
Is that it?
we're gonna swear in one of our new officers. He was actually our previous code enforcement officer. He comes from Frisco PD. He was in the jail there. He started the police academy there, but had some personal issues that he needed to deal with, so he had to back out of that program. But he's come here, and he was here for about a year and a half as code, and he just had a lot of potential that I liked in an officer. So he's here to get sworn in by Mayor Meek. So come on up. And after he's sworn in, Allison will be pinning him.
I'll let you read this.
I, Tyler Seals, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of police officer in the city of Oak Point, Denton County, and the state of Texas. Will do my best ability to preserve, protect, defend the Constitutional and laws of the United States and of this state, so help me God.
Congratulations.
It's really good to have a second skill.
That was fun. We're happy to see families and so many officers here. Thank you for being here tonight. Agenda item number 5 is items of community interest. Jody?
Okay, we had a Veterans in November. I think it was the Saturday before Veterans Day, and it was well attended. More than happy to honor our veterans on that day. We also have Winterfest coming up, the first Friday evening in December. Saturday,
yeah.
Okay, and the time?
It's from 5 to 7.
Okay. So we're looking forward to that, and that's the only thing I have.
Okay, I have to brag on Council Member Bastich. He arranged for us to have a very special ceremony for our veterans. Is it called Quilts?
Quilts of Valor.
Valor.
Yes, ma'am.
And 3 of our veterans received these beautiful quilts that are handmade. And ours came from a lady that lives in Oak Point that made it very special. It was so touching. I got all choked up and it almost ugly cried a bit. It was just a beautiful.
It was very
It was a beautiful ceremony. Thank you all.
You're so very welcome. It's my pleasure.
Number 6 is public input. I don't think I received any public input cards. Do you have anything, Joan?
No.
Okay. We'll move right along to agenda item number 7, presentation and discussion of the following reports. Financial report for October 2024. Any questions from council? Donna, thank you for the responses you gave to the questions that were emailed to you in advance. Third quarter 2024 investment report. Any questions from council? Municipal court report for October 2024. Any questions? Permits report for October 2024. John probably has a question about permits.
He's gonna make a comment.
Put that on. Who's in the call?
Okay. Police department report for October 2024. Chief,
Just a couple things I want to point out on our stats for last month.
whoa, it's really dark.
Wow, don't know what lights we have on.
Yes.
There's some set of lights.
Yeah.
It normally is.
So just to let you guys know, we answered 709 service calls last month. That's a 1% increase. That's typically normal with the holidays. The services were down 35%. That's actually really good, surprisingly, because of holidays. Traffic stops were down. Arrests are also down. And traffic accidents were down. Now, there will be a small increase, and this typically happens around October, November, December at property crimes. And those 9 that are right there are just basically kids going around and popping door handles. They're not really even popping it, it's open, they'll go through it. So apparently last month they found 9 cars that were open. But like I said, that's typically expected, especially around May and June when school gets out, that little small increase is good. So even though it says 125%, it's really just 9 compared from last month. And the same thing with drugs and alcohol, and the neighborhood patrols. Because at the beginning of the month, we didn't get those property crimes, we beefed up neighborhood patrols. So that's why there's that increase. So I just kind of wanted to touch on that a little bit. You go down to the map. Okay, right there. So the one on the map on the right side that basically shows all of our traffic accidents. That's where they actually take place. And then the map on the left are traffic enforcement. So I know I've heard this before, some people say that we're the 720 police. We're not really the 720 police. We're just there because of the traffic accidents that actually happen there. So that's why there's a major green and red right there on 720. It's not that we want to be there, but it's just because we need to be there. So I just wanted to kind of explain that as well. That's pretty much all I have, unless anyone else has any questions.
Chief, I have a question. It's back to the neighborhood patrols. If you can increase them 125% month over month, what are we foregoing or what are we not doing because we're spending our time in the neighborhoods? And if we were more consistent with spending time in neighborhoods, would we sort of tamp down that agitation that you observed going on, which made you want to increase the neighborhood patrols?
Yes, it's kind of a give and take a little bit, because if we start focusing on the neighborhoods, it'd be good for the neighborhoods, but then we kind of stay away from the businesses in 720 area. So we kind of got to try to find that balance. We only normally do that if we have like a little bit of a spike in property crimes. Then we'll beef it up as much as we can. But like I said, it's I wish we could be everywhere, all the time. But it's kind of, if one side of the city goes uncontrolled, that seems to be the busy side for some reason. So we try to plan out where we need to be at what time. Matter of fact, one of the items that we got approved for budget was a traffic monitor. What that does is it's, you can post it on a pole, and it actually will give us our readings for speeders. So whenever we do get complaints about speeding on a street, we can actually mount this on a pole and actually get data for what time of the day we need to be there. That's a lot of the question is, well, what time does this usually happen? And the citizen will tell us, oh, 3 or 4, and we get there at 3 or 4 and nothing happens. So at least with this new I'm gonna say doohickey, I can't even call it, whatever it is, we can at least get some type of data and then kind of figure out what time we need to be there. So we're trying to calculate exactly where we need to be at certain times.
Interesting. Thanks.
Thank you for the positive statistics, and thank you for keeping all of us safe.
So Chief, there's one thing on one of your charts labeled good intent. What does that entail?
That's gonna be on our.
Oh, that's on.
I said fire chief.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
It could be the smoke detectors. I don't want to give you the wrong answer, but I was trying to pull it up, actually, the invert code. So it's the code as far as, if you're going down to the invert page, Joey,
Yeah.
the code sheet, that one. You have to pull it up. That's the categories they fall in. So anything that's good intent. So 400s, I believe. Scroll back up for me, please. To the call sheet.
Oh,
Keep
Pull
it
down.
safe. Down, pretty safe.
Down. Yeah, go down. That, right there. Okay, so good intent's the 60s. Now go down to the next one. So your 600 code categories, so you can have dispatch, cancel, and route calls. Usually that's where we're gonna get those numbers from. We responded in a route, fire alarm, resident called in, canceled the alarm, it was a mistake, so we got disregarded en route. But you're also gonna have all those other things. Generally, we don't really ever have the wrong locations or no incidents found. Controlled burning, authorized controlled burning, we're gonna start getting back into that again, those fall into that category. So anything with that 60 number as far as good intent, these are where they will fall into. And I've questioned whether or not, to ask you guys whether y'all want to more in depth, to go to that next number instead of just in the 60s, to go with the 651, 652, you want specifically the numbers, so you see what actually the call was. And we can break that down further if you want to break those down.
I think
But
it's
that's how to
sufficient.
read that. So on that first page, if it's 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, that's the category numbers here. So 20s, 40s, 70s, and so on.
Joni, can you go down to where the photograph is and the statistic numbers? That's it.
Yeah, I think it's a little bigger than the screen, isn't it? There we go.
I was just wondering, under my image, it says vehicle accidents and you're not saying I'm a bad driver.
My wife brought that up. She goes, I thought it was each one was responsible for those individuals. I was like, not necessarily. And those numbers will be different from the police department's numbers. When he's got a different number for accidents, you may see the fire department's number different for accident as well. They may go to accident calls that we don't get called to because there were no injuries or something like that. We also may go to some after the fact that they didn't necessarily dispatch a police officer to, or that went into their statistics. So sometimes, specifically vehicle accidents may be a different number than you would think. We all go to it every time. Sometimes it could be different. But very funny.
Anything else for fire department report for October 2024? Okay, great. We'll move on to number 8. Report from council liaison. A, update on the park November meeting. Mayor Pro Tem Duffy.
Okay, so a firm called MHS Planning and Design was approved to handle boat ramp grant process, and that includes design and hiring vendors to actually build out, we'll get to that point. The pickleball bid request received one applicant for $366,000, which is crazy. The board turned that down, and I thought it was on tonight's agenda. I thought the council had to also turn that down.
It'll be on next month's.
Pardon?
It will be on next month's.
Next month.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you enlighten me a little bit about how that bid got so out of whack?
I don't know that the bid really got out of whack, to be honest with you. The estimates from the engineer and the landscape architect was in that ballpark range. The bids were, their estimates were 350 to 360. We just thought they were high.
So what I mean by that is not that the consultants didn't underestimated or overestimated or whatever. It's that they were given information to do, there's like $100,000 in there for fooling around with the dirt. And how do we actually request that, or how did it get in the bid package?
So when they looked at the boring samples from this building, and they looked at the plasticity of the soil, the engineer that reviewed it said that we needed to remove 2 feet of that gumbo clay out there and bring in 2 feet of clean fill to keep that slab stable. And that's an expensive process to do that. So when you start removing dirt and bringing in clean fill so it's not expansive, then that's a big number.
Well, obviously, so, but all you have to do is look at the existing basketball court that's been there for 40 years, and it's fine, no cracks, nothing.
I mean, it does have cracks in it, but.
Well, hairline cracks that all concrete has.
So, I mean, I can't tell you the answer. I don't know. I'm not the engineer. I didn't design it. It was the engineer's recommendation to remove 2 foot of that clay and replace with a 2 foot of clean fill.
So some, in the next park meeting, it'll be addressed how to get that cost down, because we might as well just throw it out the window if it's gonna be that cost.
So the park board voted to work with the landscape architect to modify the plans. Maybe that becomes an alt ad, maybe we don't remove the soil as presented, and, maybe that takes some money out of the bid. There's also a lot of fencing around it. Maybe we remove fencing, only put fencing on ends. Past that, I really don't know. I mean, the slab alone was 100,000 concrete. And maybe just stripe it. Maybe you don't fully paint it. You just stripe the squares. I don't know. But the plan too was to modify the bid, as well as we just bid it on our website. We sent it out to multiple bidders, including the folks that you had asked to bid it, and they didn't give us a price on the bidding.
Partly because I think the bid is like 33 pages and it's just full of all kind of technical stuff.
Right. When you get into detailed bids, everything's got to be the same for all the bidders. It gets technical, so
Yeah.
you just can't wing it. So.
Well, it comes to the point, abandon the whole idea or totally rework it, because park's never gonna have that kind of money.
So part of it was, let's rework it. Let's put it out to Civcast. Civcast casts a wider net. More people will see it. We just pushed it to our website, notified vendors that, hey, this is out here for bid. You want to bid it? We sent it to Sports King and a few others, and we had 20-something people download it, but we only received one. We received 2. One came in 6 minutes late, so we couldn't open his bid. So we have no idea what he bid on pickleball court, but yeah, all along the bid from the engineer and the landscape architect, they kept telling us 350, 360, and we thought, you're crazy. That's just too high. And of course, the one bid we got was in that range.
Well, okay.
So we either have to scale it back drastically to get it down to something that they want to do, and you can build. I wouldn't call it. That was not a bare bones, but we could build a bare bones one.
Okay. You're upsetting.
So y'all can discuss further.
Yes.
B, update on the Economic Development Corporation November meeting. Councilmember Wyler.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of the key points here is we are in the process of upgrading our trade show booth. We'll continue with a rather simple design, but we'll get a more modern and more 21st century, some LED lighting, backlighting, and some improved graphics with improved technology. And it's proving to be reasonably economical to do that. So it's a good investment for EDC for the limited amount of trade shows that we do. The next the point really, the wayfinding signs, the continuing project of the wayfinding signs, and there was some observation that the monument sign at 720 and Taylor Cheyenne Prairie, or McCormick Cheyenne Prairie, was not actually laid out, that the design seemed to be, because some of the elements of the sign are getting lost in the way it's manufactured. So I can't really get into the details of that other than to say that there was some criticism of how it came together, and it was requested that we go back to the sign manufacturer and try and do some modifications to it so that, the oak leaf and the acorn was in the design. There's also been some delay in the installation of most of the signs. There was some question about the installer had put things in the wrong place or whatever, and there was not really any, at our meeting, there was not really any sense of who owned what or responsible for that. Subsequent to that, I think Stephen has more information, but it was left to Stephen and the president of the EDC to work with Corbin and IMG to try and get this resolved, and importantly, to get the signs installed and get this project to a reasonable conclusion in the most expedient way. Next was the proposal joint meeting of the council and the P&Z and EDC with HAF and Associates to talk about the second phase of the design, and we'll focus in on zoning and look at the town center concepts. And there were 3 dates proposed, so we're waiting to hear what those were. The ICSC trade show that's coming up in January of 2025, it will be at the Sheraton Dallas, and we'll participate in that. And that's why we're working to get the trade show booth going, the new design trade show booth going for that. And finally, Brad Harris, Stephen's assistant, has accepted a position as a city manager, and so he'll be leaving us in the summer. That's what we heard of me.
Thank you, Greg. Next is the consent agenda. Agenda item number 9. Consider and act upon the minutes for the October 16, 2024 City Council meeting. And number 10, consider and act upon a resolution authorizing the fire chief to execute an interlocal cooperation agreement with Denton County regarding the city of Oak Point's provision of fire protection services to certain unincorporated areas of Denton County for fiscal year 2024 through 2025. Council, do you wish to pull any items for discussion, or is there a motion to pass the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion to pass consent agenda as stated.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Lusk, and the second, was that from Councilmember Weiler? Okay, we will vote. There's no discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. It passes unanimously. Regular agenda, number 11. Public hearing to hear comments regarding amending the comprehensive zoning ordinance of the city of Oak Point, Texas on approximately 28.029 acres of land located in the A0338A J.O. Dixon Survey, abstract number 338, tract 7A, City of Oak Point, Denton County, Texas, by changing the zoning on said tract of land from single-family residential estate district, minimum 5 acres, RE5, to planned development number 22, PD 22. Does anyone wish to speak? I'll open the public hearing. Mr. Comer, did you want to speak before I open?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I'm opening the public hearing at 6:32 PM. Does anyone wish to speak at this time? If not, we are closing the public hearing at 6:33. Agenda item 12, consider an act upon amending the comprehensive zoning ordinance of the City of Oak Point, Texas, on approximately 28.029 acres of land located in the A0338A J.O. Dixon Survey, abstract number 338, tract 7A, City of Oak Point, Denton County, Texas, by changing the zoning on said tract of land from single-family residential estate district, minimum 5 acres, RE5, to planned development number 22, PDD 22. Mr. Coker.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, I appreciate being here. This
We're
evening.
glad you're here too.
Because when I was
Because
coming
you
up,
missed the P and Z.
I missed the P and Z, and I'm lucky to be on. So anyway, I'm glad we're here. The Planning and Zoning Commission did consider this, had a public hearing, and made a recommendation for approval, subject to compliance with the staff recommendations. The applicant in this case has agreed with that recommendation. Therefore, your recommendation from P and Z is for approval, subject to the conditions that are included in your staff docket and included in the ordinance that you're going to consider as well. I'm glad to answer any questions that you might have. And after we're done, after you take a vote, I'd like a minute.
Can you recap the staff recommendations that
Yes, sir.
you need paying attention to?
The main thing, I think, in my mind was that staff wanted to have circular connection to Sunset Cove to provide better access for emergency services and trash and those kinds of things. And it was consistent with the comprehensive plan, the recommendations that we have in our transportation section and in the future land use element recommended that we have and improve the transportation system that we've got. This does that. We worked with the applicant in this case. They worked with the neighborhood, and the neighborhood actually was in support of the 2 cul-de-sac idea. And I had talked to them early on about a connection, an emergency services connection down there. But as we worked on this, it became much more clear to the staff, to your staff, that having a complete loop there was a positive benefit, not only for this subdivision, but for the community as a whole. One of the things that Stephen and I talked about was if you had 2 cul-de-sacs and somebody's going down Sunset Cove, instead of getting 1 trip by, if they're going the wrong way, you're gonna get 2 trips by your house. And in this case, if somebody comes down the new street and then comes out and goes up Sunset Cove, there's 1 trip. So we've really done something I think that's positive for the community. And in this case, this applicant has worked really hard with the neighborhood to get to yes. And I want to thank Mr. Banner for his staff's hard work. And he has not been a watcher. He's been actively engaged in that. So that's the answer to the question. That's the big thing as far as I'm concerned. We rewrote their development standards to be more consistent with our current PD 20, which makes a whole lot of sense for us and for the developer, I think, at the end of the day. They've done a real good job with their concept plan to make it fit into the rural environment that we have. A lot of open space, 10% minimum. They got the trail system. I mean, I think it's going to be a real asset for our community. Other questions?
Any other questions for Mr. Cole?
Yeah, just one question. Just because it's been such a topic over time, what about roof pitch?
They have agreed to comply with our requirements. State road.
And Mr. Coker, other than the fact that we've eliminated 2 cul-de-sacs, was there any really downside to making that connection? Other than maybe a few trees?
No, sir.
Really not even losing any trees. Yeah.
They're gonna maintain as many of the trees. That happens to be a low place, right there where the drainage.
Where it comes through?
Comes through. And had you not connected it, they would have still had to put some kind of a fire department connection, which would have been an impervious surface for, a fire apparatus access route. So
It
Question,
looks great without the cul-de-sacs.
I agree with you, Councilman.
John has a
yeah,
question.
question, so I went to the P and Z meeting and a lot of discussion centered on, what am I saying, drainage on the north side, northeast side, and also drainage elsewhere around the property. How does the PD take care of that, or does it involve that? What's going on with drainage?
Drainage will be satisfied during the plating section. We had lots of discussions about how we were going to drain this to make sure that it did not adversely affect any of the property owners that are on either the north side of Dixon or on the west side of I just had brain on Sunset Cove. So it's all going to drain down to the lake at one point or another.
Okay, I understand that, that's not what we're voting on, we're not voting on the plat.
No, sir. That'll be coming to your P and Z later.
I want to acknowledge the neighborhood leader, Lynn Hall. Thank you, Lynn, for coordinating and getting all the neighbors together and helping with communications. And I want to thank the applicant, Mr. Banning. He really went out of his way to listen to their concerns and address them. I think it's going to be very nice. Thank both of y'all.
Before you take the motion there, I'd also like to recognize Randy Rivera. She's done really good. She's the McAdams planner who has been the front person for this project. She's been a pleasure to work with.
It's wonderful.
It looks like it's gonna be a great little neighborhood and I think from everything that I've heard, it's a great platform for us to look at for future development and how we can cooperate and enlist everyone in the process.
Absolutely.
Lynn, will you go to all the neighborhoods and meetings and communicate? You did a great job.
If I could add one thing here, Commissioner Peterman pointed this out during the during the P and Z meeting, and I kind of incorrectly read the sentence, but I think she was right. So if you're inclined to approve this ordinance, maybe approve it with the recommendation that we make a change on section 5B entry streets, changing the roadway to main entry. It reads roadways providing access into the property shall employ a divided entry street for a minimum distance of 200 feet. Commissioner Peterman pointed that out that was all, and I just picked it up as A divided. Well, no, A is one, and then but when you read the whole sentence, it's basically saying any entry's got to be divided. So I think we're just looking for the main entry to be divided. So
And that's
replace
the one off of Dixon.
right that
Thank you,
one at the
Stephen.
top.
Is there a motion?
I'd just like to make one more comment.
Okay.
I appreciate this approach to property development in Oakport. I'd love to see more of this. I think Councilman Wyler's words are well spoken. Thank you.
Well, and I'll just say real quick, this has been, logic has prevailed from the neighborhood to Stephen, to Michael, to Dina, to the whole council, to P and Z. It's just been very refreshing to work here. It's my first big project here, and it's just been pleasant the entire time. Communication was excellent, and just logic prevailed all the way around. And so it's just really been nice. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to finishing this on it.
Thank you.
Thank you for working with the neighbors.
More respect. Thank you very much.
I'll make a motion to approve the comprehensive zoning ordinance as stated previously by Mayor
Oh, did you want to
With
make
the
the change?
with the message.
Need to section 5. Good enough.
That's good enough.
We have a motion from Councilmember Lusk. We have a second from Councilmember Horatio. Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. There are no nays. It passed unanimously. Congratulations.
Before you move on to the next item, Mayor,
You want to say
You want
something?
just 1 minute. And it's hard for me to keep from crying.
Don't cry.
I stopped at a gun store on my way up here to pick up
Did you hear that, Chief?
a 22 for rat killing at my farm. And I went into the store and there was this huge man, bald, said Ranger, sure. So I was buying the gun and I said, did you serve? And he said, yeah. And I said, where? And he said, well, 2 tours in Afghanistan, 3 tours in Iraq. And I said, awesome, because I did 40 years and he did 38 years. We talked for a while and as I was walking out,
He gave you a call.
this morning, I have to tell you, Lieutenant Colonel, 38 years in the United States Army, awesome. I appreciate it.
Very cool.
Supporting.
We love our veterans, and I see veteran Jack Brown back there. He received one of the beautiful Silks of Valor. Okay. I think we're on, are we on 13?
13.
Yeah, okay. Presentation of the fiscal year 2022 through 2023 audit by John Watson of Bruce Watson and Company, PLLC. We have teams meeting. This will be different.
We can make it work.
We can make it work, yeah.
Who's gonna do right there?
Why didn't it maximize?
Is that John in the bottom corner?
What's that do?
There we go.
All right. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfectly.
Okay, great. Volume is okay, Stephen?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Can you see us?
Let's see here. I can't, but
Okay.
that's okay. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll go through this presentation and I really appreciate the opportunity to be there remotely. Had a medical event last week and can't commute currently, so just very appreciative of that. Thank you. But I'm gonna get through this presentation and then open it up at the end just with the remote nature that might make it the easiest, and happy to go back to any information I go over. So as the mayor indicated, we audited the year ended September 30, 2023. My name is John Watson. I'm with the audit firm Brooks Watson and Company. So this information relates to that year. We conducted the audit consistently with U.S. GAAP, that's generally accepted auditing standards. U.S. GAAP audit follows a 3-phase approach. The first phase, that's where we focus on areas we find most susceptible to risk of error or fraud. Field work, we test those areas that we found susceptible to risk, and we vouch those areas of testing to underlying evidence, confirm with third parties, make sure things are reported properly, or where they're not, determine as to why we propose audit adjustments. And that's the third phase, conclusion and reporting. Propose those audit adjustments, prepare some findings, and help prepare that. So that's kind of a quick overview of any audit of a government. Next slide here, the components of your report, there's 5 sections to it. The first section is the audit opinion. That's a letter from us. Your auditor describes whether the financial statements are consistent with U.S. GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles, or if there are any modifications. We'll look at that on the slide to come. Management's discussion and analysis follows that. Shows current year results and year and some explanations over changes year over year. The basic financials follow that. Those are the numbers, the heart of it, if you will. Those are presented on two different bases of accounting. The first is government-wide statements, which covers all your long-term debt, capital asset activity, and everything else. And then a fund level statements, which are modified accrual, and those are presented more on a near-term look, similar to how you budget. In the back of your report, you've got the required subsection. It's got your budget to actual schedules. We'll look at that for your general fund, your pension schedule, which we'll take a look at as well, see how well your pension is funded, and then some combining statements in the very, very back of your report. That's everything within the report. Okay, so I mentioned the independent auditor's report or letter. That is what this slide relates to. There are 4 possible outcomes you could receive, 4 different types of opinions.
Hey, John,
those are listed.
you're not sharing your screen.
Yeah, we don't see your slide presentation. Can you share your screen?
Oh, gosh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Y'all,
That's good.
give me the heads up there.
There you
There you
go.
Oh, this is gonna make it, a little more tangible for y'all. Luckily, there was just a lot of narrative really about what the audit is and then the parts of the report. So, at least we'll be able to look at stuff now, which I think is more important. Thanks for chiming in. Okay, so the letter, there's 4 types of opinions you could receive. Unmodified, indicated here at the top in green, which is the best. Why disclaimed and adverse. Those are the different types. So first bullet here, the city is receiving an unmodified opinion over all your governmental funds and governmental activities. So that's the highest level of assurance that any CPA can provide, and that's what I'm here to provide today. So that is a good thing. The second bullet, the city is receiving an adverse opinion over fiduciary funds. So those relate to your PID activities. So the city is a fiduciary over all of the different PIDs that you all are associated with. And at this point in time, the accounting is not caught up to be able to provide anything other than that form of opinion. Now, there is information in the report over the PIDs, and that information is simply the best available information. However, due to it not being up to date, it is not considered at a level where we could issue anything other than that type of opinion. So we can pause here because I think this is an important matter, or we can press on. And any questions on this? And again, I'll open it up at the end too if y'all want to talk about it after.
John, my understanding is whenever you guys finish the PID part, you'll change that from adverse.
So, Stephen, that's right. So, though we're issuing an adverse opinion today, this is an opinion as of a point in time. So, if the accounting is caught up and we're able to complete that additional work, and we've completed a significant amount of work already over the PIDs, but there will be additional work. Once that's completed and we feel that those numbers are materially accurate, we could then issue an unmodified opinion at a later date. So I think that was a long-winded answer of yes, we could issue a better opinion later.
John, this is Dina. I have a question. How is this situation different from last year? There was something similar to last year.
It is not different. It is the same. We were able to go back and issue an unmodified opinion later over last year, which was the plan. If you recall, I came in October of 23 last year. We issued the same opinion with the plan of going, and once the accounting was caught up and we were able to audit those PIDs, that we would go ahead and issue an unmodified opinion at a later date, and that has been done. So you're right. This is the same approach as taken last year.
Question. Is this normal, so to speak, normal for cities the size of Oak Point to have multiple PIDs in their purview?
Okay, I'm going to try to repeat that question because I didn't hear it entirely clearly. Is it normal for the PIDs who have for the city to have multiple PIDs, and that's the part I kind of lost you. What could you say that again, please?
I think he was asking, is it normal for a city that has as many PIDs as Oak Point has to, what was the last part of that?
Be in this situation.
Be in this situation.
Okay, is it normal? So normal for me, obviously, is in the backdrop of our firm, because which is let's say maybe 60 to 70 cities that we audit in the state of Texas. How many have as many PIDs as your city? That we audit? Not many. You'd be the most. I have other cities with PIDs, but y'all have the most of mine, and I probably could venture to guess that would be the case for my partner as well. So, so y'all are a little unique. Now, I'll say, yeah, our cities with other PIDs, we don't typically do it. So to answer the question, I wouldn't call it normal with respect to our other client base. Typically, we're able to issue unmodified over everything. However, I will say the scope of activity for your PIDs is quite a bit more than the PIDs of the other cities. Not every city we audit has PIDs, but your level of activity is quite a bit more. And considering there was no accounting done until we kind of started auditing, in 22, it's just quite a bit. So I guess a quick answer to your question, no, it's not normal.
Thank you. Stephen, does this reflect down on C3 or whatever they call themselves?
P3. No, this had to do with that GASB change that last year when we discussed it, we weren't getting, GASB made a change in reporting requirements, and we weren't getting information from Wilmington Trust, and it took us forever to get that information. So we're kind of trailing from last year. So we finally got 22 caught up. So now we're trying to get 23 caught up. So once we get 23 caught up, then they should be able to reissue an opinion. Hopefully it's an unmodified opinion. So.
Okay, thank you.
So what kind of time frame do you think that's going to require?
John, the question is what time frame do you think it's going to require to finish up 23? The PIDs.
So, well, the good news is, and Stephen, I know we've gone through quite a bit with these PIDs, but we've gone through it now, right? So I feel like when we were talking in October, when I was sharing information, I was optimistic because we weren't sure, but we had someone engaged to do the accounting, and we felt pretty good about that process. The person I've worked with on other engagements, it's done similar work, but that took quite a bit longer than we anticipated. So I don't want to be overly optimistic again. That said, we have good books over 22 now, and so I think there's a decent roadmap. I feel there's a good roadmap on what's missing and what needs to be accounted for. There's already been a fair amount of accounting done by the city over the basic bank transactions, but there's just a lot of long-term asset, capital outlay, and assessment receivable accounting work that needs to be done. But again, we have a roadmap for that. So timeline question. These questions are hard for me because look, if it was just my firm and we had a set of numbers to audit right now, I could work it into the schedule and figure out how long it would take. So the accounting has to be caught up, and it has to be in a manner that we can audit it. Okay, so this stuff I'm talking about needs to be accounted for reasonably well. Doesn't have to be perfect, but it needs to be captured and hopefully pretty accurate. So all that said, I mean, once it's done, we should be able to complete the work within a month or two. And the only reason I say that long is we're bumping into our busy season, so it becomes more difficult to fold this work in. But we want to get it done as much as the city, I assure you. So it's kind of right now. It's kind of in the city's court. They need to catch up their accounting, and then once they get that accounting caught up, then it can be put into our court, and then it'll be my job to work it into our busy season audit schedule, which is the season we're in, as quickly as I can, so we can turn it around for y'all.
So Steve, is this outsourced accounting work or is this internal staff?
tasked with doing this.
This is a lot of data that's got to come from P3 Works that shows how assets were allocated. There's a lot of questions that surround how did this get determined that this was a 50% payable, et cetera. So there's a lot of coordination between us and P3 that has to get back to them. We've been entering info into our accounting system and reporting that to John and his group, but it's just a process that we've got to work through, and a lot of it involves P3 as well.
But it's internal. It's our city staff. It's not outsourced.
It's partially outsourced with P3. Yes.
Well, I understand that,
Right.
but once they get you the information,
We have to get it exactly.
And ultimately, we're here with this adverse opinion due to a lack of data.
Well, it's only it is a lack of data, but it's only an adverse opinion to the PIDs for 23. We have a unmodified opinion for 22. So our city books are in the green. It's just these PID things that we're trying to get caught up on.
so I mean, the point of my question is, do you have enough resources to be able to not only get caught up for this year, but can we anticipate next year because we're going to be in this same situation, or are we going to?
I hope not to be in this situation next year. So no, we're adding an accounts payable position to be dedicated full time. So we should be in good shape.
So it's a resource issue.
Right. Right now, it's just pretty much Donna and a part time, and she's really not even part time. She just helps with accounts payable. So.
I mean, it's helpful to us, at least to me, to understand that if we don't have enough manpower, this is the result.
That's true.
Thanks.
Any other questions? John, are you finished?
No, I'm not. I apologize. This is kind of the one issue that I thought might take the most air out of the room, so I wanted to kind of stop right there. But I do have some more here.
Okay,
So-
continue.
I'll go ahead. Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for the questions as well. Okay, so I'll be fairly brief, but I do have some information I want you to understand and see. So financial highlights for the year. Again, this is September 30, 23, for the year ended the same. First bullet, total assets exceeded total liabilities by $41,075,000. Second bullet, your city had an overall increase to their net position for the year of about $5.9 million. Third bullet, your city's governmental funds reported a combined ending fund balance of about $15.5 million, which is an increase of about $720,000 for the year. Your unassigned fund balance in the general fund was about $6.6 million, which is over 100% of your annual general fund expenditures. That's a benchmark we look at and GFOA looks at. So you're in great shape. 3 to 6 months is good, so you're sitting in a good spot there. Here's a pie chart of your revenues. So a good look at where your revenues are coming from. Got some bullets here just to compare year over year. So this is 23 relative to 22. First bullet, governmental revenues were about 13.4 million. Last year they were 17.2 million. The PID contributions are huge in this. So yeah, you just have more contributions from your PIDs. Those are those heavy infrastructure assets, the streets primarily, drainage, capital outlay that comes over. So that's the big difference there year over year. Your sales taxes make up 5% of your revenues, 661,920 for the current year. Prior year it was about 615,000. Property taxes, the third bullet here, makes up 27%, 3,571,000 compared to prior year, about 3.1 million. Charges for services make up 26%. Close to 3.5 million. Prior year was 3,681,000. Franchise and local taxes 4%, 514,000. Prior year about 373,000. Okay, so that's the revenue side. Here is your expense side. Total governmental expenses in the current year 7,495,000 relative to prior year close to 6 million. Your largest expenses categories functions rather. Public works make up 27%, 2,016,000. prior year was 961,000. A lot of that is depreciation. So I mentioned those heavy capital assets coming over from the PIDs, and you depreciate those. So naturally, those are expensed over time, those streets. And so that led to that big increase there. Public safety makes up 45%, 3,352,000, prior year to 2,756,000. So increases in personnel costs year over year. General government, 18%, 1,357,000, relative to prior year, a little over 1.4 million. Okay, so that was the government-wide look. I mentioned there's two different bases of accounting applied. There's also the governmental funds, which is modified accrual, and that's what this look is. Your general fund has the majority of activity that's in this left column here, and then you've got your capital projects fund and some special revenue funds. So revenues at the top, expenditures, and then the net. Just circle here to see how the changes are occurring. Your general fund's kicking off a surplus here of 1,152,000. So that's pushing into that unassigned fund balance that I mentioned earlier, the over 100% in unassigned. So that's where that's being generated. We can see that residing in your fund balance there. Capital projects, so utilizing funds, so it's negative, which is perfectly fine. Capital projects fund's going to have surplus years, and then as you use those funds, they'll be negatives. Special revenues are operating at slight surpluses, so everything's kind of working consistently with our expectations on this slide. Just a couple more slides for you. Mentioned the budget to actual schedule. This is toward the back of the report, and in your slides, there's a reference if you ever want to look at the details. But on page 71, there's a budget to actual for your general fund. So we got your final budget. You budgeted a slight surplus of 10,437. We can see you came in at that heavy surplus I mentioned earlier, about 1.1 billion. So actuals in the middle in your final budget, and then we got the variance on the right here. So working top right down, revenues were over budget by 965,493. That was mostly made up of investment income. So that was well over budget, over $500,000 over budget. You'll see there. So led to a significant surplus. Expenditures just a little over budget. Really was just related to a lease, so it's kind of a non-cash item. But capital outlay, that's what that relates to. And this led to a net overall surplus there. A 1.141 relative to the budget there. Okay, two more slides for you. This is a look at your pension. This is indicated toward the back of the report. We go newest is on the left and then older to the right. So this is a 4-year look at your pension. You've got total pension liability at the top. That's estimated by an actuary. And then we've got your actual hard assets here, the fiduciary net position, and you get to a net pension liability or asset. It's actually an asset. Asset is negative here. In prior year, we had an asset. So the assets were greater than the liability by it was 90,000. So your pension was over 100% funded, which is not typical. It's a good thing. This year, you're in a typical pension liability position, 879,000. That is a funded ratio. So your asset relative to your liability is about 81%. Prior year was over 100, as I said. So what is 81%? Is that good, bad, or what? Average funding level for 2023, a nationwide study by NCPERS for U.S. government pensions was 77.8%. So you're a little above average. The reason it declined is twofold. First, net investment income. So we can see in prior years, you had net investment income. In 22, stock market didn't do well, and you had a loss there. So kind of track with the stock market losses there. So we're always expecting gains, and over the long haul, it should be net gains. But for that year, you had a dip. Okay, so that's a big reason. The other reason is your change in benefit terms, the updated service credits that were adopted. So that led to that increase on the pension side too, outside of typical service costs. So those two factors are what flipped you from that asset position to that liability position. Just second bullet here, because this is very long-term, pension's always long-term look, but how does this impact you? And it really impacts you through the contribution rates. TMRS does a good job of catching up rates to make sure City, in my opinion, the cities are staying well-funded, and that's what we see here. So you can see an increase to your contribution rates year over year, just so you stay well-funded. And you feel that through the budget. So that's where it kind of hits the bottom line. All right, so that's all the information. I know it's covered quite a bit of ground. And I know we took some questions over the PIDs. In addition to that, there are a couple letters. I'm not going to go through all the details. I want to save you all the time. However, I'll just touch on them. There are two of them. The first one goes over kind of some standard things with audit. We're independent. I don't have any relationships, or our firm doesn't have any relationships with the city outside of this contract. Goes over common estimates for the city and other things that are pretty common. It also goes over the audit adjustments. So anytime you receive an audit and the auditor proposed adjustments, they're going to list those in the back of the letter. So those are listed in there. So that is the first letter. The second letter goes over any internal control matters. I feel like our firm is very transparent with things. We try and share as much information as possible. Sometimes it might not be a big deal, and other times, might be something to consider. So those internal control things, the PID accounting, which discussed at pretty good length, are all listed in there. So that is all the data and information I wanted to share. So with that, I'll open it up again to any questions that y'all might have. Thank you.
Any questions from council? No, we're good. Thank you. Thanks, John.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Donna, thank you for all your hard work on the audit.
Yeah, thanks, Donna. Thanks, Steven. Appreciate y'all.
You bet. Thank you, John.
All right, bye.
Thank you, that helps. Okay, agenda item 14, consider an act to approve a resolution accepting the fiscal year 2022-23 audit. Stephen?
What did Regan look like? Oh, there we go. I couldn't figure out what was going on there. Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you've seen, Brooks and Watson presented the audit for fiscal year 23. This same year, we'll be receiving again the audit for fiscal year 24, but this time it will be done by Park and Vale. I guess now the auditor, well, we're still alive. So,
Is he still with us?
well, no, but
No.
we're alive. So
Okay.
we're moving to a different auditing firm next year, but staff recommends you approve the audit so we can move forward.
We used to receive them much more timely in the spring. I remember March and April. This is really too long.
Not into the next fiscal year.
Any other comments or questions?
Steve, maybe, I might should have asked John, but maybe you can clarify. It looked like on the pension numbers, that was for year end 2022.
That would have been for, yes, fiscal year 22, because then it'll show for fiscal year 23 in this audit. So,
In this audit.
yeah, because they run a year behind.
So we should have gained some of that back with the difference in.
We should see it in this coming audit. Yeah. No doubt.
Any other questions? If not, is there a motion for accepting the fiscal year 2022-2023 audit?
I'll make a motion to accept fiscal year 2022 to 2023 audit.
Second.
We have a motion by Deputy Mayor Pro Tem Klawicki and a second by Councilmember Lusk. Any further discussion or questions? If not, we'll vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. There are no nays. It is unanimous. Number 15, consider an act to approve a resolution to cast 8 votes for candidates in the election of the Denton Central Appraisal District Board of Directors. Does anybody have any comments, any suggestions?
I think the only thing that we really received, Mayor, if I may, is something from Mike Hennifer. And I think everybody probably got the 2 emails asking for our votes, and of course, Rob Olson. I personally know Rob. I think he did as well. He seems like a good candidate for the position. but, we have 15, well, 14 to select from.
It's
It's
a
kind of
lot.
hard when you only got information on 2 people. So I'd like to recommend that we cast our vote for Rob Altman, who I know personally, and I think would make a good addition to the cab.
Thank you, good suggestion.
Make a motion
I
to close
agree.
the nominations.
Is there a motion for the candidate? Go ahead. Make a motion.
I'll make the motion for
Oh,
Rob Altman.
okay, thank you, I'm sorry.
Is his name Rob Ball?
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Bastich and a second from Deputy Mayor Pro Tem Kowicki. Any further discussion?
One question.
Okay.
Does anybody know how many total votes are involved in this thing?
It was on that
Thousands of
previous
ISD, and one of them has 1,100 votes.
Oak Point has 8.
Yeah, I know we have 8, I mean.
There's 1,236.
What's that?
Says 1,236 total.
But our votes still
No,
count.
but the school
We still
district,
need
it's
to vote.
5,000 with.
Oh, yeah, you
districts.
combine the two, the cities and the school districts, total
The school
5,000.
districts get a lot.
We get 8, so.
Okay, good enough.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. There are no nays, it is passed unanimously. 16, discussion regarding improvements to the boat ramp.
I think Scott may have answered this in his update, the stage wrap, we're going to have that company come in and give us an idea of what grants are available and create a plan for what's gonna happen. So at this point, I think we can just go by that unless somebody else has something to say.
No decision may be made.
No, it's
decision
just
to be made at this
discussion item.
point. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to 17, discussion regarding the city's newsletter distribution.
And I just was wondering, are we gonna go to an all mail again? Have we decided that, or is that something?
Well, that would have been something that would have had to be approved in the budget.
Right.
So if we were to do that, then
There's no way to,
we would have to make a budget agenda amendment.
right,
So, and these are the figures at the bottom of the staff report that I sent out. For what it would cost.
Those figures are still good from the previous discussion on this.
I think she updated these numbers just to make sure that they were current. So, yeah, currently we mail out 68 newsletters to those that request. We spend $1,700 to do that. If we were to go to mailing them directly, I guess that's who that, what do they call that, where you put it in like the bulk mail type?
No, if we were
Oh,
mailing
that's-
directly,
this is
that's
to
what
the-
we're doing now.
how were we doing it before?
Every
We did it
door
for
direct.
years and years and years.
Well, I wasn't here before, so I don't
No, but I
really
mean,
know.
this.
So the every door direct
We're all
is-
here.
being mailed.
Was 27,978. But what happened with that was with Wild Ridge and some of how that came in, we were no longer capturing all of Oak Point, so we were going to have to print even more and send them to people that lived in Little Elm and Crossroads, and because
Wow.
they create these zones, and so you have.
We put addresses on.
Then
Well,
you
then if we put addresses on them, then
it's
it's
$39,611.
$39,611 versus we're paying $1,700.
So the door direct is the post office deal,
So
right?
And you go by routes, and the
Right.
post office has predetermined these routes. Well, they overlap, they're not all Oak Point.
Right.
So we were getting complaints from people in Wild Ridge that they weren't receiving the newsletter. When we add those extra routes, it adds a whole lot more, as you can see.
So now we're sending them to people in Crossroads and Little Elm. They're like, why am I getting this? I live in Oak Point. I don't live in Oak Point. The other option is then we just go first class mail, where we have to put them in an envelope or label them somehow to each individual address and stamp them first class. And the estimate on that was, I might as well call it $28,000.
No, that 39,000.
I'm sorry, 39,611.
600.
So.
David has a question, please.
Yes, David McDevitt. have we considered mailing to registered voters only, and unless they request a mailing from the city?
I don't think we've had that discussion, but I can tell you there's more than 4,300 registered voters here. We have a lot of registered.
Because if you go registered voters, then there can be 4 in a household, so you get 4. This is, the 39,000 is just hitting every house that's in Oak Point, so.
Yeah, my thought was we'd be
23
sending it to the people that are
Free.
interested in the city. And excess would be good.
That's good.
Well, Dave, you bring up a good point. We put it out there in the newsletter before we stopped sending it to everybody. If you wanted to continue with the newsletter, if you were interested in the newsletter, and I think we put it on our website as well, all you have to do is send a message to the secretary, and you'll get one every month. That was our solution to avoid $40,000 in the cost.
Sure.
Now, the concern is, there's people saying, well, I don't get it anymore. Okay, so if you want it, just call.
Sure.
We'll make sure you receive it. I understand, because David, I think you brought it up, that people seem to be now misinformed because they're not getting it. The solution would be to get the information back out there. Well, if you want it, just request it. Well, now at that. But I think we cut our costs considerably when we decided we're not gonna just send it out and make more fodder for the recycling bin.
Well,
We could
that's one,
communicate if
that's
they can
one
sign
take
it.
on it,
Yes.
that's fodder for the recycling bin, but the other take on it is that this is the one and probably only way that the city communicates with our citizens and our residents. And for whatever it's worth, whatever information is in there, and, Joey does a great job with gathering up the data, the information. But it's the only way that most of our citizens and residents hear from the city. And, yes, there's a cost to it, but is that a cost that is worthwhile for, and a benefit to the citizens?
It is also on our website, and you can sign up on the website for you to be notified when it hits the news flash. I've had, we've had 68 people call and say that they want to be on the list. I also had people asking, they thought it was an email list, and I said, no, we don't have an email list, we have it on our website. But a lot of people said, I don't want any more junk in my mailbox, And maybe that was because it came with the other ads. I don't know. I mean, I've heard both, So that's a decision for you guys to make. But,
We'll do them however you guys want to do them.
Well, do we amend our budget for $40,000 for this year, or is it something we consider for next year's budget?
It's up to you guys.
David, more comments?
No, I mean, I think it's a great discussion, and I think I agree with Paul that it's our one touch with our citizens. It's there. You can put it on your table. You can pick it up later. You can make a note in it. I understand some of the inefficiencies and things like that, but I do think we're striving to be more communicative with our citizens. We've started to broadcast our meetings to some degree. And I just think that's a pullback that has been a move in the wrong direction.
We're talking about $8 per year per person. Right? I mean, 5,000 people, 40,000, 5,000 people, that's $8.
I didn't sleep enough last night.
Quick math.
I'm personally thinking, I grant some people should say, yeah, I want to get the paper regular, I don't want the paper regular, whatever, but our citizens are lazy looking at how many people are here. 4,700 of them are lazy, they don't show up, how many are in there, so,
Don't call them lazy.
They're all
They're
one.
not interested. I think, I'm on the line with Dave, I think, put it in front of them, they'll read it. If you don't put it in front of them, they don't take the time to cancel it.
How often do you send it out?
Once a
How
quarter.
often do you send it out?
Once a quarter.
That's 4 times a year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we ought to do the direct mail, it's in the 40,000, I don't care if it's in the budget or not, I mean, it's $40,000. We got lots of things in that budget, how much is the total budget, 6 million?
More than that.
I enjoy receiving it in my mailbox.
Okay, go ahead.
This may be a dumb question, but what other services do you give to the people who live in Oak Point that you have to pay for? That's personal, nothing. So we get a paper newspaper. That's something. Everybody gets it, everybody knows what's happening. You don't get it, you don't read the email or website, you don't get the news, you don't know what's happening. I prefer the paper content.
And anyone can get it that asks for it.
Yeah, well, I did, and I do.
Can we do the paper content, and if people don't want to get it, they can opt out? Rather than opt in?
I don't know, we have to send the list to the printer, so, I mean, we'd have to modify the list monthly, I guess.
I mean,
But we're gonna have to modify the list monthly, because right now, I mean, we're growing. And this is for the current 3,923 newsletters, and as we grow, that number's just gonna grow as well.
Well, that's if we do the Every Door Direct with the routes.
And that's what they're proposing, right?
Right, the 2,300 is the number that we took off Denton Cat as how many households we have. So we would have to go to Denton Cat and try to get an address list from them. That's where our address list would come, and that would be mailed directly.
We be clear the amount, the one everybody in Oak Point gets, and nobody else outside Oak Point doesn't get,
Yeah.
is the 39,000 number.
Right.
Yes.
Why not?
I have a question. We're in 75068, so I don't know how they cut their data, but 75068 incorporates Little Elm and Oak Point. So are they arbitrarily sending 75068 Oak Point newsletters to addresses that have Little Elm in it, or just Oak Point?
If
How do they
it would be,
differentiate
because
the
it's
two?
zones and it doesn't match the zip code or the
So
city.
it's just so I understand, it's a bulk mailing to that zone. So if you want to get all the Oak Point residents, you'll have two zones, right? You'll have a zone that includes most of Oak Point, and then another zone which includes some of Oak Point, and all those non-Oak Point people are gonna get that, because you just have to do a bulk mailing to, if it's 20,000 people, it's 25, it's 5,000, whatever it is. That's correct.
Yeah, to do the Every Door Direct mail, which is how they do the ads that you get in the mail, that we get every week. So it's part of that system, and it is broken up into zones. You can go on the post office's website and see the zones that they have, and they just don't match our city borders. So in order to pick up those few residents in Wildridge that weren't getting it, we had to add, obviously, a whole lot more people. You can see the difference, 1,600 people. And that includes Cheyenne Prairie, which is actually, or Cheyenne Lakeview, which is not in our city limits. A lot of Wildridge isn't in our city limits. So yeah, it's going other
How
places.
many people would we leave out if we didn't do that second zone that was the smaller zone?
Well, it was,
How
it
small is
almost doubled. When we went to look at adding the zone, that would include Wildridge plus the others. It almost doubled the number from what we were sending out.
it? Well, no, what I was saying is, I guess one zone covers most of the town, one zone.
I think we were doing 3 zones just to get most of the people here.
I'm just wondering if there's some surgical way we could adjust that. If we have zones that more or less cover all of Oak Point, maybe we could, I don't know what the numbers are. I mean, maybe it's something we could look at.
Well, and that's what we were doing. We were doing zones, about 3 zones, and that covered most of Oak Point.
Okay.
But it didn't cover Wildridge. And we do have,
And how many citizens does it not cover?
that I don't know, I have to look and see how many households that we have within the city limits in Wildridge.
And then by doing those 3 zones, how many people are actually getting?
Everybody was.
We're doing a little over 2,000
Probably,
newsletters.
no, we probably, maybe like 1,900, I think is what we were sending out
Right.
before we. And I mean, the other thing that's in the cost was also going up because paper costs have gone up tremendously. But yeah,
This may sound stupid, but if you'd like everybody to have the option at their door, perhaps instead of saying, hey, go to the website, send their card, a mailer that they mail back or mail somewhere. So you can actually touch each person or each household and ask directly in their household. It may not be on the website, this is from Oak Point. Do you want to receive the regular quarterly newsletter in your mailbox? Or are you okay if it's
Kind of maybe a detach and return type kind of thing, if you want to receive it.
Somebody's gotta go through 4,000, you know.
So you're saying we do like something that mails to everybody, and if you want to receive it, you detach it and drop it in the
That's just one
mail?
possible way to go about, you should be able to be sure that we've covered everybody.
Right.
Those are the options there.
Because we had kind of talked a little bit about that as an option as well, that we could do something similar to that, where we mail a one-time something to every address saying, hey, if you want to receive it, fill this out and drop it back in your mailbox for your carrier or whatever to deliver it, and we'll put you on a list.
or you also talked about a mailer that would show step by step how you can get it sent to you via the website. When we post it on the website, maybe people don't know how to sign up, but not many people are signed up. on the website.
They might not go to the Oak Point website. I mean, I would like that everybody gets it, But if we're struggling with that decision, maybe that's a way to approach determining who really wants it, rather than just, putting a note in the last newsletter and say, hey, sign up or you won't get it.
We could try a mailer to every address.
I have one last comment, I'll make one. Invariably, I can't count the number of times that neighbors and friends have called me and asked me what's happening here. If they had gotten the last newsletter, they would know because it was in there. John made it right. The word was laziness, and we got lots of lazy people in this.
It's not lazy,
We just need old fashioned paperboard and just throw it door to door. That's all we need, little license.
There you go.
We start out with everybody with this $39,000 thing, and then tell people, hey, if you want to get it electronically, opt out of the paper.
Yeah.
It's not to them.
Either or.
People say, oh, we tell them, or you got. That's made $8 a year, basically, per household.
Can we please do another communication push for people to sign up? And can we revisit this maybe early next year or at the latest at budget time and gather more information and more numbers, please?
We have, excuse me for interrupting, do we have any other pending budget changes?
All right, now,
So
no,
this would be about
it's way too early in the year for that.
So it seems to me that occasionally this comes up, somebody says, well, how many houses are there in Oak Point? And I'm like, I don't know. So is there any value in actually creating such a list?
Well, Denton CAD says
Well-
there's 2,330.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. And we can't pull that list from them?
We can, yeah.
So this number is for,
Or not Denton CAD, but I'm sorry, our property tax.
That's good.
Right.
Denton CAD, yeah, the appraisal district, right, yeah, that was what was in our report that we got when we were finishing up the budget. That's the number of households.
this $40,000 is for 4 mailings, correct? So
That is for 4 million, right?
Yes, that's for
Okay.
4 mailings addressed.
maybe since we've got one coming up, or maybe it's too late for that one, but maybe for the next one, we do a mailing, just one, and in that mailing, we say, if you like getting this, here's the way you can get it on a quarterly basis.
Let us know.
We tried that before.
Send us your email. Yeah, but we can't just
I
try it
didn't
once.
see it.
We wouldn't be able to do it for this one coming up because we wouldn't have time to
It's
get
too
the
late,
list.
yeah.
But we could do it for the spring.
Yeah, it just looks like junk mail and goes right in the trash.
Well, I think that's what happened the way we were doing it before, is coming in that Wednesday where, you get all the ads from Kroger and whoever else, and, might thumb through it and toss it in the trash. So hopefully you recycle it.
Listen, I believe there's a solution to this, and I think we just have to come up with the right solution to be able to get this communication, get it in people's hands. And if we can do it for less than this, then maybe we can figure out how to do that. But
I think it's a responsibility. I was talking here and it sounded like that's really what I want to get down to. So I think we have a responsibility as the council to get that information out there. We have a responsibility to inform our citizens. We used to have newspapers that came in here and sat here. We used to have that Record Chronicle here every council meeting. We had Lakeside Times with a Lone Journal, and people are receiving that on weekly or daily basis. They get nothing now. They have, if they don't tune into our feed, they don't have any awareness really of what's going on, except maybe talking to their neighbor or seeing something on Facebook.
Very few
And then
watch
once-
the feed.
Yeah, and once it's on
What's
Facebook,
that
it's
count
all
on the feed?
Isn't it less than 10?
Yeah, most of the time it's less than 10.
How's the quality then? Is it changed or we're still,
Quality's pretty good, actually. Yeah.
I mean, as watching it, David, I know you watched early on. I don't know if anybody's actually watched the feed recently. I don't know. I don't know if you've
The people that are gonna opt out are the ones that, if they get the message or get the newsletter, they don't want to spend paper on it, they'll opt out of it. But I think you start with everybody and then you let people opt out rather than start with nobody and ask them to opt in.
no, if they're not gonna opt in, they're not gonna opt out.
Yeah, I'm down.
Maybe a Blackboard Connect verbal message on their phone.
Well, people opt out because those are consensus people. Opt out.
This was a good discussion, and we do want to communicate. Can we revisit this in a couple of months when we have more numbers and different ideas? Would that be
Sure.
okay?
Yes.
Let's do it far enough in advance of the spring newsletter that if we decide we want to just send one out. So
Okay.
maybe that's January.
You've got good information here, but.
The spring newsletter,
If we talk about it
oh,
in
we
the
can talk
January
about it in
meeting.
January, yes.
I want to
That works.
Do you love
find the numbers in the paragraph.
When do we have to budget that? And that's in this April.
We start budgets in May.
So that would be on this budget.
I don't think it's very much.
Okay, agenda item 18, discuss and provide direction to city staff regarding topics for the winter 2024 edition of the Country Place.
Speak of the devil.
Here we are.
Too simple for that.
Let's put on the front page, if you want this newsletter.
I think that's a good idea.
Wanting it or getting it. That's the
The
fun.
winter edition is about to be published. Okay.
Joni,
Yes.
what would you like to put in the newsletter?
I don't have anything off the top of my head. We will have, the front page will be the mayor with giving, like what we did last year with sort of a State of the Union address. We will have a Citizen of the Year announcement at our next council meeting, so we'll have that in here. We will have something from Opus. We'll have photos from Trunk or Treat and from the Veterans event, and perhaps we might even have Winterfest in there.
That would be
To
great.
get pictures back in time. I'm open to suggestions on any other topics.
That sounds really good. Council, gonna have some suggestions?
Is there any road improvement update that we can add to it?
We finished Max Bowden for the most part. We could probably talk a little bit about that.
Whatever is getting repaired in Emerald Sound as well.
I mean, we've finished the repairs in Emerald Sound. We're just trying to finish some crack sealing in there. So that's pretty well done. We're 30% on design for McCormick. So we'll
Yeah,
talk a little bit
that
about
would be
that.
Good to give people a heads up.
Yeah.
If that's coming along.
Okay.
Yes, you need to do a city attorney's letter in there. Quarterly.
City manager.
It sounded like, what did you write? I don't remember you writing anything.
Jeff.
Merry Christmas from Jeff.
No, you do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I can put that stuff in my report.
Take a mean tone.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, I was just fit, but I mean, I think, road update regularly
That's a good idea.
as a standard, that's.
I usually try to
So we-
include something in there about roads normally.
Yeah, I do have to do that, just,
A regular thing would be good, because we have so much going on.
Is very, very easy.
Any, is there anything we can talk about regarding the ambulance that's coming our way?
Is this for the spring newsletter?
No, for,
No, it's pretty good.
for winter,
Winter this.
in the next few weeks, can you,
Too
Maybe a
early.
little early on that, just because we're gonna be so long out, I'll actually be able to put it in service. I think it might be a little bit early for an update on that.
Okay.
We do have that mini pumper though coming in, that was a huge asset to come in. We can put some on that. We also have the addition of the, fingers crossed, all three members do pass the state exams on their paramedic licensing.
Why don't we put a teaser in there saying, look for spring, put an update on ambulance in the next edition.
Maybe just to touch on it, because it'd be more common.
Teaser, or
We usually do our Happy New Year's, end of calendar year, article in there for both of us.
With no fireworks?
So-
With a reference to fireworks for New Year's Eve?
Oh, no, I was saying, I usually do every spring, for the spring, I usually do like an end of the year public safety, article.
Those are good.
Yeah, so that's when we usually do our big announcements, whatever, but.
Okay.
But we've been pretty consistent with having some type of public safety article in there every newsletter. So.
Okay, can we move on to 19? Discussion regarding the process of long-term planning for road maintenance, building maintenance, and future needs. Stephen, is this you?
Yeah, nothing now.
I'm sorry, so
Oh.
It's Steve.
you didn't give me this one, did you?
It's a little funny round looking. Yeah, that's it.
That's it?
Yeah.
Just while Steven's pulling it up, I would just say that through a discussion at the EDC, question was raised about how we go about planning for future maintenance and infrastructure needs and things like that, and was
How do I make this full screen?
a good question that I didn't have an answer to, so I passed it on to Steve.
Do you want me to pass those out, Stephen?
Oh, if you would, please.
Can you make it bigger? The numbers are.
Oh, we got some printouts as well here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can't do that in the contacts app.
Really?
So pretty.
Yeah, I don't see any way. See a way to blow it up. Looks like I can blow up the screen. Let's see if I can do that. Probably help me just to see this here too.
Sure.
So this is our 5-year forecast based off of the values that we've had from 17 through 25. You can see in 17 our total assessed taxable value was 339 million, and this year for 2025 we actually went into the 1 billion category, 1 billion 3 million. Forecasting out for 26 through 30, we move out to about 1.85 billion. And then I kind of put some of the numbers, assuming that we keep our tax rate steady and, what it adjusts the levy and what are changing our taxable value. So that, because I just have to make some assumptions. So that moving from 25 to 26 creates a change in our taxable assessed value by about 82 million, which is about a 7.6% increase. Looking at 27, we would forecast out to about 1,172 million, which again would be about another 7.4% increase. And then 28, 29, 30, all the way through 30, we forecast out to about 1.4 million, 1,400,000,000. So really, from the time I showed up here, I guess in 18, we were 383 million. We will have increased in value by $1 billion. So quite a bit. So, if you looked at the average growth in our known years, we've averaged our growth of 12.57% per year. And if I average the growth over the entire forecasted years, then the average growth was 9.66%.
That's growth in value, that's not development or more homes, that's growth in value.
That's growth in value, exactly. Taxable value. Well, this is really not good to see here. What if I hit escape, Joni? How about I just blow this up? Maybe instead of going through, maybe I can just make it bigger this way.
That helps.
Yeah. For those in the audience. So looking at, this is our revenue side of our general fund. Using those same values, I applied basically those percentages of growth in the property values across that, on assuming again that we kept our values steady. So this year our general fund property revenues were currently at easier for me to see over here, 4.2 million. 4.2 million. Projected for next year, if we kept our values roughly the same, we'd be about 4.6. 27 be about 5 million. Moving out to projected fiscal year 30, we'd be about 6.1 million. And then I kind of applied anywhere from 3 to 5%, depending on the category of growth below, and came out with a total projected budget, say for next year, being about 9.3 million. Projected budget for 27, 9.5, 28, 10.54, 29, 11 million, and 30, 11.7. So then moving down in the expenditure side of the budget, I'm going to blow this up just a little bit more. It's still kind of hard to see. Scroll it over a little bit for you guys. And as good as I can get it and kind of see both. So looking at admin, I just did a standard 5% growth across the years, pushing next year an admin to 1.7 all the way until 5 years later of 2.181 million. The difference, you see a pretty good sized jump in fire safety. This year we were at 2.2. Next year I added a 5% growth, but also added $650,000 to bring in-house our ambulance service. So that made a pretty big jump off of that to 2.9 million. And then again, I just kind of grew that by about 5% annually across the years. So it's 3.36. Kind of did the same thing. I didn't have a big jump. There's no ambulance service for PD, but I just kind of ran 5% across the board, pushing next year from 3.1 this year to 3.3 next year, up to about 4 million 5 years from now. I kind of did that same path across. So if we look in 5 years, we're looking at projected revenues of 11.7 with the projected expenditures of 11.14. Having a change in the fund balance of about 650. The only thing that worries me, and I'll get a little bit further down here, we have our transfers in and out of the PIDs. Those would obviously increase because they pay a fair share, so their fair shares are going to jump quite a bit in fiscal year 26 because they're going to have to take on that ambulance function as well. But then I just tended to grow those by that same 5% growth. And then here we kind of get down into our capital project funds. Right now we've been growing that by 3%, and that's what we do to do street and road repairs. So this year was 1,350,600. Applying that 3% across the board, it ends up in fiscal year 30 of about 1.5 million. So then these other numbers down below are kind of discretionary numbers, equipment replacement funds. We probably can fine tune those a little more throughout the years, but I just kept it kind of steady on that 100. Also with our building renovation fund, I just kind of maintain. Oh, I need to scroll down. Yeah. I maintain that at the 50, and then just transfer for building reserves. I reduced that down to 10,000. And then that leaves you with your net change on balance. So next year, we got a little bit of a challenge ahead of us. I'm showing to be in the red on next year, 122,000. That's at $650,000 ambulance. But you know, all these things are always liquid, so things are always moving. We never really know how the numbers are gonna lay out, but we'll figure that out.
Damn newsletters.
I'm sorry.
Reading this live.
Well, if we had $40,000 from that newsletter, I would be only $80,000. So, but moving from there, you know, we get back positive. But we took that pretty big hit from that ambulance in the first year.
Where's City Hall gonna show up?
So that'll show up.
Get to that?
Yeah, City Hall is going to be a little bit of a challenge. I think we're going to have to figure that one out. A little bit how are we going to pay for City Hall? Is City Hall going to be a combination of maybe selling some land, using some of that cash fund balance that John talked about earlier in the audit? We've collected from developers probably about $3 million over the years in PID fees. You know, combine that with some cash, and Bloomfield owes us 3.5 acres up on 720 frontage, and we own 2.5 acres over on Cheyenne Prairie Road. So, you know, we may look at selling some of that and kind of look into maybe a cash thing. I don't know. This depends on how the debt service plays out, but I haven't really got that part figured out yet. Moving over to the next sheet, this is kind of a capital improvement program. It's kind of my total summary on my CIP. So if I look again, we talked about those general revenues. This year we budgeted 1.350. Next year we'd move the 3% up and take it to 1.3. So looking at those revenues over the next 5 years, we will have roughly about $29 million worth of revenues we'll collect. Next year will be a pretty large year. I'm talking a little bit ahead of some things here, but this would be a $15 million possible certificate of obligation or possibly general obligation bond, depending on what council decides to do for a fire station. We have $800,000 we should collect over the next year from Denton County for the road improvement funds. We should have developer contributions for McCormick somewhere in the neighborhood of about $2,180,000. That number is also a little bit liquid because we don't really know exactly what that road's going to cost us right now, so it's kind of a little bit of a guess. And we have contributions from others, being developers that are developing that area, for they're paying their fair share for McCormick. That estimate's about $270,000. So next year we should be looking at some pretty good collections of about $19 million. Then we move over into 27. Then you got, again, what we've allocated out of our general fund, 1.4. Then you got $1,096,000. That's that general obligation bond that we passed in 2018. So that's maybe a project in Eagles Landing. I think they're probably up next for a road project. Then we hit 28. We have our allocation of 1.45 from the general fund. And then we come back down to 29 and we hit 1.5 million, which is our normal allocation. And then we hit 637. I'm thinking about 29 we'll hit the Yacht Club Road, Naylor expansion, where we're moving south on that. So that's probably beginning on the engineering side of that. And then moving into 30, we'd probably end up back into Emerald Sound with another road project in there. And that's at the 1.9 million. So looking down into projects, general revenue projects. This year, we've got Max Bowden, engineering and street, everything finished out about 327. We've got a chip seal project for Crescent Oaks. We're going to do this fiscal year, probably about 525,000. We've got a chip seal project we're going to do in Yacht Club Estates this year, about 125,000. McCormick Road, from Yacht Club Road to 720. That's just the engineering phase of that, about 600,000. Then looking at the following year, that's starting to get into the construction cost of it. So I kind of pushed that over about 2 years. About 70% of the road will probably get done on next year, and then about 30% to finish it up in the following year. And then we move into, I wish that would stay still at the top, but it don't. So we got 25, 26, 27, 28, 325. That's probably beginning engineering for Naylor Yacht Club. And then we would probably start into the, at 1.6 million, we would start into some of the construction in 29 and 30. So then we're looking there at 10 million from general revenue for road projects. And then looking at that bond obligation, this sheet don't show it, but there's 3.29 million. Looking at maybe starting a road project here because I don't have a road project going, so it keeps us moving into road projects. We haven't identified that project yet, but we'll identify. I estimated 200,000 engineering, 100,000 in roadway work, and then if this is the next Emerald Sound project, I just kind of split it out. And then probably the next project would fall. There's still another 1.9 or so left. Would probably fall into 20, 31, 32. We'd probably hit start doing maybe some paving and back into Crescent Oaks where we did some chip seal to hold things over. Looking at certificate of obligations, that's where we're talking about a fire station is our first priority to move forward with. I threw a number out there on land. There's some different parcels of land. You know, that one's probably the most expensive. If we were to purchase that piece of land for 2.3 million, we probably would look at selling off 1.3 million of it, but I still got to put the number in there. So we have land, 2.3 million. Architectural engineering or just A&E. Overall, that's going to run you about $1,080,000. That's your engineering and your architectural to design your building. And then your fire station will run you about 12 million. So altogether, when you run the numbers through, you're looking there at about 16. But we'll get probably, if we were to look at that property, we sold off 1.3 million, you're back at your 15 million on your fire station. And then looking back at looking at the overall excess from year to year, we started out this year at 6.1 million. We would end up, our fund balance ending would be 3 million that year in 25. 26, where our fund balance ending would be 8 million, 29. I've got these numbers off, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30 across. So it all works out with the money. Then we come out, break these out individually. This is a summary of all of them. Wish it fit on one page that you could read it. And then this is just the general revenue caption. So this first piece here, where I talked about general revenue, this kind of breaks through the general revenue piece by piece. So we obviously generated that 1.3. We had those projects through. We ended out the year with 5.9. Then we move into a heavy load of revenue where we're now starting to do the work, and you can see that's running down through. So we stay positive through that all the way through the process through 2030 with having still a balance of 9.3 million in that fund. So we may pick up and do more roads since we have excess capital. And those are things that we need to talk with council, and you guys need to decide how you want to handle that as we're moving forward through the CIP. Looking at the capital improvements for, if we were to the general obligation bonds that you guys have already issued, there's 3.29 million left. That's approximately 2/3 of that 3.29 million. And then that's just kind of how I played it out. So it ended up with a neutral balance there. Then moving into, if we were to issue a CO for a fire station, there's the, say we issued that in 26. Let's say we bought the land this year for 2.3 million. And we began the architectural engineering. I just kind of divided that up over 2 years. We would start construction of the fire station in 26. It's about a 17 to 18 month build. So I did that over 2 years, 70% 1 year, 30% the other year. That gave you 12.8 million on build overall. It's a $15 million build, given that you would probably sell back 1.3 million of that land. So you can see that you're over 1.2, but it doesn't account for selling back property.
And what's that fire station, PWD?
Oh, it also includes public works building, yeah. Because we got to move fire and PD out of that building to make that building available. Anyway, that's what I have. I don't know if Greg wants to talk any more about that, or that answers some of his questions. Or.
I mean, thank you. That's a nice forward look.
Yeah.
And I think it gives us some perspective of what we can expect to see progress toward, not only the capital improvements like the buildings and things like that we're gonna need, but also what's our plan for keeping up with things as they go, especially, streets and parks and maintenance of things like that. So I think that's helpful. And if there's a way that we can, in some general way, I know we're not going to get this specific, but if there's a way that we can give our citizens a vision of what the long-range plan is, the 5-year plan for being able to get to their neighborhoods and take care of the things that they're concerned about, I think that would be very positive.
So this one's generally interested. Citizens are usually interested in this sheet, and as well this.
Everybody's
sheet.
interested about the streets.
Right.
Everybody wants to know when their streets get.
You talk about people don't get on the website and read the newsletter, but you publish this and you publish what street's going to be done in what year, and they're telling you, hey, you told me in 2028 my street was being done.
Yeah. And I understand that.
Yeah.
So that's why I say in some general way, it would be helpful if we could communicate that there is a plan in place and we.
So we do need to identify and given, council is in agreement with how we kind of have streets laid out. I mean, part of it is how much we don't have a large staff, so how much can we keep up with the staff? So we've had 2 street projects going at one time before, and that proved to be a little bit. So we're adding some staff. Can we do 2 street projects at one time? Maybe so. Maybe we can handle that now with some added staff. But at the time, it was pretty much just me. Trying to handle 2 street projects was a little overwhelming. But adding some staff, we can tighten these numbers in and do more projects instead of trying to run them just one after another. But typically, it's fairly easy if we run them one after another because we can plan. It also helps with our funding options, but our funding options are looking pretty good on some of the numbers. So that's where some of the things that council can discuss on. We are escalating this number by 3%. Do we want to escalate it by 3%? Do we want to maybe escalate it by no percent, or we just want to keep the number? Are we happy with that number? Because we are looking at a lot of capital needs. We need a new city hall. We need a new fire station. We need to remodel these buildings to build a new police station. So when we look at all those things together and say, well, how do we get that money?
We have a very low amount of debt, especially compared to other cities, especially in the area. Little Leon has more than 10 times as
Oh,
much debt as
yeah.
we have. So it will not hurt us to increase in debt.
It's not gonna hurt us to issue 15 million, but 30 million would be a lot, you know, so, I don't know that we can handle 30 million, to be honest with you, and be able to afford to keep staff on, to pay staff, so we'd have to work for free, I guess. I'm close to retiring maybe, so I can do it for fun. But, you know, yeah.
So all of these, budgets, estimates, revenues and expenses are based on existing headcount, existing houses?
Yeah, so I agree with, if you look at the property values, I agree that with expecting we would have more growth. That's not just hey, I think that the appraisal is going to increase everybody's value. I anticipated the growth of housing.
And what was that?
I anticipate the growth of housing at 7.6%, I think. Well, it changed year per year, but I did it. Right.
And that $15 million would be a bond?
That would be a bond. So there's two types of bonds that you can see. You can see the general obligation bond, which requires it's time. It takes a lot of time and it's expensive because we have to go out and we have to get voter approval, have an election. You go through the whole process. The certificate obligation provides the same thing. It's a bond. We just don't have to go through the expense of an election. If your citizens believe that you're being responsible with the monies, and we believe that our citizens would want us to have a new fire station. If they saw the state of our fire station, they probably would all agree we need a new fire station. We kind of avoid that expense and we get access to the monies quicker. Now they can quickly force us to a general obligation election. It don't take much. Like 10% of the voters who voted in the last mayoral election can sign a petition, which can stand out in front of 7-Eleven and get that in about 5 minutes probably.
So all of these numbers in that 15 million, that's 40% tax.
Yeah.
So that-
Well, I based it all staying on that steady tax rate.
Is your taxable assessed value essentially just residential?
It's residential and anticipating new commercial.
It is, okay.
Yeah, so I tried to escalate it as well as looking at the value increase. So.
Well, I know you don't have a crystal ball. There's only so much you can envision.
I know. I mean, these are
interesting exercise.
These are guesses. Yeah. They're estimated guesses. A lot of help from Excel. Excel has forecasting features and stuff. So it's a lot of guessing, a lot of weighted regression, different things like that. So yeah, we spent a lot of time doing this. We probably
Did you gain any insight from it, from the exercise?
Or
intuitively, you already knew all this?
Yeah, I kind of already knew most of it. I wasn't really quite. I knew next year was going to be a little bit of a challenge on that number, adding 650,000 to the budget out of the blue. So I knew that was going to be a little bit of a challenge, but we'll work through it. We'll get there.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Can we move on? We're on 20. Recess into closed session in compliance with section 551.001 et sec Texas Government Code, to wit, A, real property section 551.072, real property, to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. B, section 551.074, personnel matter, city manager annual review, and city manager agreement. We are going into closed session at 8:06 p.m.